The Money Show.
Business Books.
Time for our business book feature now with Bronwyn Williams, Translator and future finance specialist at Flux Trends. She'll, of course, be looking at the book Big Plans by Catherine Black and Belinda Mountain. Of course, that book, Big Plans, really looking at the South African context when it comes to digital advertising. It is small business, big plans. Bronwyn, welcome again to The Money Show.
Thank you so much for inviting me back.
When people talk about digital advertising, especially in the space of startups and mid-tier companies, people are like, let's get a third party to get a look at this. But if CEOs and directors pick up this book, what value would they be getting from it?
Yeah, well, firstly, the book is written by people who do actually fulfill that middleman or that online marketing role. That's what Catherine Black and Belinda Mountain do themselves. So they're speaking to their own knitting there. But it's really this particular book is a crash course in marketing for those who didn't study marketing at a tertiary level, which is most small business owners. And it goes through all the basics, all the things that you might have skipped if you had not gone through that sort of training yourself. And it's full with quite a lot of useful tips, really basic how to get started guide and everything on how to set up a website, so how to get involved with social media marketing, and even then, yes, to how to select and manage digital public relations and or marketing or advertising agency should you need those services going forward. So they are at least covering those bases there. They do go through checklists that you can determine for yourself if you are ready to engage the services of a professional, if you could actually end up doing these things yourself. As for myself, I did study marketing, so I did recognize a lot of the tips inside there. And also having worked with businesses of all sizes, some very small businesses with zero marketing budgets, where my role was to promote that company to the greater market as far as that zero budget can go. I can attest to the fact that many of the tips covered in here are essentially no or low cost ways to get your business noticed by more people, which is essential when you're starting out. And if you just go through all the tips that they go through in this book, you'll already have something as opposed to nothing when it comes to having both a marketing strategy and some advice as to how to actually execute that strategy too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, Bronwyn, make the mistake of thinking as a small business, you can just have a social media page and tell people what you do and think business will come to you. But you still need the skills of building some of the tools that are needed in terms of creating a website, a digital sales strategy. Is this simplified enough for anyone that does pick up the book? Because the jargon can be off-putting.
Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely simplified. I think that it's probably not very fair to compare it this way, but this is the sort of advice you would get if you were to type into ChatGPT how to set up a marketing strategy. That's what I was thinking when I was reading it. It was like, it's giving you that advice, but it's better than that because it's already framed the prompts for you. So it's giving you both the prompt and the answer. And that's why you should have the book in hand instead of just going directly to a ChatGPT type of function. So it is very simplified. There's nothing in here that is scary to pick up. It's definitely a beginner's guide to the great big world of digital marketing and everything that's available to you. And it goes through the pros and cons of all the various different free and slightly paid platforms you could get engaged with, and the paid versus earned media. That is the sort of, word of mouth as opposed to paying for advertising, all those opportunities that you have that can be quite overwhelming. It gives you advice as to how to spend your money to get the biggest bang for your buck, which is the point of marketing. Marketing should be an investment in your business and not an expense. Otherwise, you're doing it wrong. You should be getting more out of it in terms of sales and leads and actual tangible conversions, especially with digital and online marketing, than you're putting in. If you're losing money on digital marketing specifically, you're doing it wrong. This is not awareness building, big advertising, billboard campaigns. This is digital, which should be everything about it should be able to be quantified and tracked and turned into some sort of lead in your sales funnel, which they also explain very nicely for you. So it's kind of condensed all the basics into one little book that you can carry on with you and try and apply. But I think it's also important to note the point they're not just going through how to do these things. They're also going through the fact that it doesn't actually matter if you set up all these accounts and set up your websites and choose to get involved with social media marketing or influencer marketing or email marketing or whatever part of that digital marketing mix you choose to spend not just your budget, but also your time on, because time is very costly for entrepreneurs and small businesses too. They also stress, being as they are essentially creative and content marketers at their core. The point that you can have all these platforms, but unless you have a good message to put into them, your efforts are going to be largely wasted, or at least not as profitable in terms of that return on investment as it could be otherwise. And I really do appreciate how they spend so much time in this book talking to the craft of crafting your message, understanding the story behind your brand, your unique selling proposition. Again, all these things that would have been covered if you'd done marketing at school or at college or university, but things that you might have missed if you come from a different world before you set up your business. So it will be really basics for people that are familiar with marketing, but at the same time, it's hugely valuable to people that have not had that exposure to marketing 101, which this can basically be comparable to like doing a couple of years marketing course at university level.
You said it was condensed, but I also like the fact that this book is in the South African context. And of course, Catherine Black and
Yes.
Belinda Mountain, both industry experts. Do they give like notable examples in the South African context of businesses that have been able to use some of these strategies and were successful?
Yes, they do include case studies in the book, mainly case studies of their own clients, but they have taken the trouble to pick ones that are slightly smaller, even like one-man shops, all the way up to sort of bigger businesses they've worked with in both the services and the goods industry, which is always interesting to see, having promoted businesses and worked with businesses that work both in the actual physical product selling space and the service selling space myself. I do appreciate the distinction between selling time and selling objects and the limitations and also the opportunities available to people that are trying to promote those two very different business models. So yes, there are case studies. It is very practical. If you have a small business, if you are a sort of a single entrepreneur, if you're someone that can't afford a marketing person, let alone a marketing department, this will certainly give you a crash course in helping you to sort of catch up with the basics, so you don't waste your money and time on promotions that are simply not going to return an investment for your business.
It's called Small Business, Big Plans. Do they also go through some of the things you can do in terms of digital marketing to help scale your business? Because I know a lot of small and mid-tier businesses always talk about scaling up. Is there an angle to do that through marketing?
Well, they don't really go into that, I must say. That's more of a basics as to how to set up all the things. The model they basically use is the lead funnel models, this whole idea of you've got to create awareness first, but you first have to know who your target market is to put into that funnel, and you've got to funnel it down through awareness towards sort of trial or interest and into a sales point, and then, of course, retention thereafter. The very basics of a marketing funnel is what they're going through there. There's not a lot in terms of sort of scaling up your business other than the general advice that at that point you should probably engage the services of a professional marketing or advertising consultancy to help you make that leap, which is only fair. I mean, that is their business, right? So they're kind of doing their own, they're following their own map in this book, and that the book itself can be seen as a part of their awareness and lead funnel for their own business. And that, of course, is an object lesson in and of itself as to how you can use creative ways, perhaps not just using sort of Facebook and Twitter, or more importantly, I suppose, in South African context, TikTok, which is, of course, has some of the biggest following, as you might be aware, in terms of advertising reach and all of that. You can also do things like write books and get yourself talked about on programs like the show that we're speaking on right now. So they have succeeded, in other words, in following their own advice, which I think is a point in their favor.
Yeah, a great example there. I was actually going to ask, that was going to be my next question, that if I read this book and I do it thoroughly point by point, can I then discard the services of the likes of Catherine Black and Belinda Mountain?
Well, that's, of course, the catch-22 when it comes to marketing. When it comes to the sort of low-cost digital marketing techniques they're covering here, things like social media marketing, email marketing, all those things that we're familiar with, they are hugely time-consuming. And there's a reason why businesses, when they scale, hire either a marketing employee on a full-time basis or engage the services of an agency. Because marketing, as much as it is essential for growing your business and should be seen as an investment, is not necessarily the work that the CEO, the entrepreneur, should be focused on. Because at the end of the day, that's not your core business. It is still a support function for your business, right? And the techniques involved here in digital marketing in particular are particularly time consuming. Having to set up social media posts across multiple platforms on a daily basis is a trade-off in terms of your time and your attention. And that's perhaps the biggest lesson that entrepreneurs should take away from this sort of advice and this sort of book, is that it is time consuming, and perhaps your brains, your talents, your skills are better deployed elsewhere. And if you've got a good partner or a good employee, again, you could hire someone to do this in-house too, that can free you up to build your business. And that person can be seen essentially as an investment in the future success of your business.
And of course, this book bringing through great tools in order to build your website, get a strategy for digital advertising, and as well, that was of course Bronwyn Williams, trend translator and future finance specialist at Flux Trends, going through our business book feature. This week's book, Small Business Big Plans by Catherine Black and Belinda Mountain. Thank you so much for